Welcome to everyone. For those of you who are new to TPG, we're a professional association that empowers and supports public interest technologists of all backgrounds by offering connections with other technologists across the US and even globally. I myself am based in Toronto, Canada. Rebecca is in Sweden. Our common goal is to use our skills in the service of the public good and to help each other by sharing lessons we've learned along the way. And we're all passionate about creating a government that works for the public. So if you're not already a TPG member and you're interested, let us know and we will get you sorted. A few other housekeeping notes. We're going to be recording the session. If you're interested in getting a copy of the slides, let us know. And if you have questions during the presentation, write them in the Q&A box, which I'm going to enable right now. Just clicking that enable right now, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. Recognize that we have a packed agenda. We only have about 10 minutes scheduled for a Q&A, but this is the beginning of the discussion, not the end. We have a Proudly Serving book club discussion on January 15th from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, and if you're interested in signing up for that, please do. There's a lot of awesome material in the Proudly Serving book, so we do not consider this discussion the end of it. It is literally just the beginning of an exciting dialogue. And you're welcome to start a discussion in the Circle app if you'd like, or we can start one and more members can join, whatever works for folks. And yeah, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Luke and Rebecca. So Luke Fretwell and Rebecca Woodbury are the two awesome maintainers of the Proudly Serving book. Luke is the founder and maintainer of GovFresh as well, a media and innovation lab focused on the intersection of design, technology, and democracy. He's the co-founder of Proud City, a digital services platform for local governments, and also the co-founder and maintainer of the Civic Hacking Agency. Rebecca is the founder of the Department of Civic Things. She worked in local government for 12 years and was the City of San Rafael's first director of digital service and open government. In 2017, Government Technology named her one of the top 25 doers, dreamers, and drivers. She has a master's degree in public policy from Mills College in Oakland, California. And just briefly, I have a chapter in Proudly Serving myself. It's on upskilling. And just quickly to give you a little bit of background and insight into how this process worked for me, I was doing a lot of thinking and talking to folks and exploring about the issue of upskilling. And I noticed that there was very little out there in terms of material, and especially in the government services, the government context, really. And so that's how the idea for an upskilling chapter was born, and the rest is history. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Rebecca and Luke. Take it away, guys.
All right. Thank you. So happy to be here. The way we're going to do our presentation today, I've got some slides that I'm going to present about the project overall, and then I'm going to hand it off to Luke to do kind of a deeper demo of the tools that we used to get this project done. So I am going to hopefully very gracefully share my screen with the slides. Hopefully share. Okay, I'm getting something. Got it.
Rebecca.
All right. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you just let folks know that the chat is at the, well, I can just say it right now, actually. The chat icon is on the bottom of your screen if you want to if you want to type in the chat, and also the Q&A is on the bottom of your screen as well. Sorry.
Great. No, that's great. Okay, so let's see now. Hopefully my arrows work. Or a click. All right, so Proudly Serving. This is a book with the subtitle of Public Service in the Digital Age that we have been working on. And so we're going to talk today about our process and how we designed kind of the infrastructure and the workflows for getting this book put together. The purpose, as and this has kind of evolved with the project itself, we've summed this up by saying this is for everyone who serves the people, takes pride in their part, believes there's always a better way, and does the hard work to deliver it. And this statement, it actually evolved kind of out of an earlier who this is for statement. And when we first set out, we thought we were writing a book for local government practitioners. But as this evolved, kind of this bigger purpose evolved as well. And so we really see this book as for anyone who fits this bill, right? Whether they get a paycheck from the government or not. But we kind of expanded this to this purpose statement around finding purpose in public service and also committing to the hard work and the growth that it takes to build a community of service. So that's kind of where this purpose statement kind of evolved from. The origin story for this. So this project evolved. It stemmed from Luke wanting to write a book. And after I had left my job in the public sector to start my own company, he reached out and asked if I wanted to co-write a book with him. But each of these kind of wasn't happening. We realized that it was going to take us forever to do this. And also that we weren't necessarily experts in all the things we wanted the book to be about as well. So where this ended up was we kind of pivoted this and built an open community project. And so now where we're at, we're 23 chapters, I think we're at 23, maybe 24, and with 25 contributors deep into the project. So this really just evolved from us thinking we were going to write a book together and then realizing that it would be better to get more experts involved, more perspectives involved, and to build this kind of open model. So the intention, as the chapters have evolved, we've really worked with the writers, the contributors, to make sure that the chapters are written in a really approachable fashion. We want the chapters in this book to resonate with a broad and non-technical audience, to kind of bring everyone along in terms of public service in the digital age. And we wanted the chapters to focus on the culture and the framework for working, because that's such a big part of achieving sustainable success. So that's kind of our intention around how we, have decided what chapters should be about, how the chapters are organized, and things of that nature. So the contents of the book. This is, I think, where we're at. Although, Luke, I think we might be missing the latest chapter on this list. So this is where we're at. When we first got started on this project, Luke and I had drafted like a table of contents of what we thought the chapters would be. But this has definitely evolved and been guided by contributors with specific areas of interest. For example, Shira wanting to write about upskilling. Over time, as we have more and more chapters, we've now kind of grouped them into what we've dubbed our ions. So contemplation, preparation, implementation, inspiration. We're going to acknowledge some folks at the end, but I have to especially acknowledge when I look at these chapters here, two contributors who have stepped up in a big way, both Eka Schneider and Morgan Griffin. They helped us really think through the chapters in terms of these groupings, the titles, the order. So that, again, has evolved, because when we started, we had a rough idea, but this has really grown as more contributors have joined the project. And there's really, as you can see here, a really wide range of topics stemming from kind of big picture concepts, default to open, for example, innovating with intention, kind of big picture stuff, all the way down to more nitty gritty and tactical topics. So it has kind of a wide range. However, each chapter is organized in following a template. So whether the topic is big picture or more nitty gritty, we have them in a template, and each of these sections, so we've got overview, problem, solution, context, and so on. Each of these sections has a word count and formatting standards. So what we're trying to achieve is a really consistent read of the book and the chapters. And what we've also done with this template is we've kind of forced a bias to action, right? So we have a checklist, questions to ask. We've really kind of pushed these chapters to be really actionable, with the feeling like after you read this chapter, you should feel like you can now go do something, even if it's a question that you're going to ask yourself, but to take some sort of action. The people that have been involved, so these are a lot of the contributors to chapters. This has been an amazing part of this project. Some of these folks we knew through our network, but many folks we met through this project. So people finding out about it, reaching out on our website to contribute a chapter. When we set out, we knew we wanted a wide range of experience and backgrounds, and looking at this list now, we got it, which is really cool. So we've got folks from all sectors. So some folks that are working within government, but also a lot of folks that work in organizations and agencies that are adjacent. And so I think we really struck a great chord of different sectors, different perspectives, different types of expertise. We've got all the names and bios on our website, so you can dig into the names behind these titles, but we wanted to show just kind of the variety of different folks that ended up contributing. So how did this all happen? From the start, we knew we wanted to design a process that could be replicated and repurposed. So we ended up designing Proudly Serving as an open civic organization. So this means our operations, everything that we've done is designed to be open. It's designed so that we can work iteratively, async, and collaboratively. And we work in a way that's constructive, it's self-organizing, it's merit-based, and is product-minded. Before I went on, Luke, did you want to say anything more about this concept of the open civic organization before I kind of move on to the next slide?
No, I think the list pretty much sums it up. I mean, my whole like open civic organization manifesto is probably for another presentation.
Okay. Yeah, you could take up the rest of the time talking about this. So we have a team agreement that kind of kicks off working with the contributors. So our team agreement acknowledges this, and it sets the tone for when we start working with someone. So the team agreement addresses respect and communication, timeliness and attendance. It's a big one when you're doing a project with no funding and not getting paid. All volunteer efforts. And so kind of holding folks accountable to us all showing up together, collaboration, accountability, confidentiality and privacy, decision-making, work processes, and continuous improvement. So these are all the kind of sub topics that we address in our team agreement. So in terms of managing the project, we manage it on an open GitHub board, and we meet regularly to kind of just keep things moving. And Luke kind of acts as product manager through that effort. And then with the roles, so we've got maintainers and contributors, kind of that terminology that you might have heard if you've worked on an open source project before. The maintainers, so as maintainers, we kind of see ourselves as steering the project, keeping it moving. This involves leading the product development, again, meeting regularly, checking in regularly, owning tasks and issues. So really, keeping keeping ourselves accountable to getting things done. And a big part, because we have so many different contributors, is supporting others, supporting each other, supporting contributors on their chapters. A big part of this was recruiting contributors, so getting people to learn about the project and contribute and write or give feedback, and then evangelizing the project as well, which is what we're doing today. Contributors. So we have folks, the main way to contribute is to write a chapter. That's kind of the biggest way to contribute. But we've also had some contributors that not only wrote chapters, but they also stepped up beyond writing a chapter, and they've helped us with editing, with design. So it's been really great to have folks step up in big ways to help us keep this moving, and also bring skills to the project that we don't have. And then we've also had a ton of folks that have chimed in on the draft chapters through public comments. So all of the chapters are written in Google Docs, and we open them up for a couple of weeks of public comments. And it's been really cool to see, familiar names in the comments, and then people that we have no idea how they heard about the project at all. It's cool to see all the contributors showing up in different ways. Now getting into the workflow. So this is kind of the cool nerdy stuff. So we designed kind of a workflow to get us from the concept of a chapter to being published. So we start with a kickoff with the contributor, where we talk about the team agreement, we talk about the whole process. And a big part of that kickoff is also talking about the topic and refining it in a way that's going to work for the book format and the purpose. So we start with that kickoff. We give the contributor 2 weeks to write the draft chapter. And then after that, it kicks to us as maintainers. We review it, and then we put it out for public review. Then the contributor has about a week to respond to any feedback that people provided in the public review. We do one more editorial review, and then we publish the chapter, and we promote. We actually kind of promote it along the way. We promote the draft review, and then we promote it again when it's done. And that editorial review is kind of to create a consistent style and tone through the chapters, so that they all kind of read as one book.
Yeah, and Rebecca, can I just say, this workflow was it was a framework. Sometimes it worked perfectly, and sometimes it expanded beyond kind of the, 2 weeks, 1 week. And that was based on, people getting sick, or us really rethinking the approach and working with the contributor to rethink how they were presenting the chapter. And so this is a framework, but definitely we weren't sort of adamant about sticking to this, recognizing that there was a flow to how the chapter was going to end up, a creative flow. And so we adhered to that. We respected that. So
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. It definitely was a framework, and maybe 50% of the chapters fit this, and then maybe 50% had different situations. So moving on from this to get even more geekier, and you can check this out on the project board in GitHub. My favorite artifact from this is our chapter checklist. So this is an issue in GitHub that we would start for every chapter. And it's a really detailed checklist of like every task we need to do to get the chapter set up, drafted, to get the public feedback, to get it published, and then to get it promoted. So it's really granular. Each item on the checklist is either assigned to Luke, myself, or another contributor. And so it really helped operationalize this. And this checklist, it just, you know, we iterated on it. We definitely like revised it over time as we learned how this worked, but it really helped us stay moving forward and organized. So it was a really great checklist to be able to also share with the contributors so they know, you know, what the process is and can help kind of follow along as well. So I love our chapter checklist. In terms of tools, so other than the domain name, we have relied on free software for this. So no funding for this project. We have, like I mentioned, we use GitHub for the project management, and that's all open. We use Slack for our comms. We also use email as well, but we primarily do the conversations in Slack between maintainers, and then we also have a channel for each chapter where we can communicate with the contributor about the chapter itself. We use Google Workspace, and we built an account for, you know, Proudly Serving Book. We use Figma for the design work. We use Calendly just the free version for people to schedule meetings with us. We use Zoom for those meetings, the free account of Zoom, which always kicks us out. But it's free. We use LinkedIn, Substack, and Twitter, aka X, or X, aka Twitter, for promotion of the chapters. And then, like with that promotion, also we have kind of templates that we reuse for the promotion to just keep it consistent. And then lessons learned. So Luke just kind of hit on one of them earlier, but we're definitely still learning. The project's not done. We have a lot to learn when we go to try to self-publish this. But you know, we've definitely learned a lot about managing a project like this. One of the things we learned was, you know, you have to maintain guardrails when you have so many people that you're working on a project with. Sometimes a chapter, you know, isn't the right fit, and you have to have those conversations. And some contributors need different levels of support, and you need to be flexible, and you need to kind of work with folks on different levels. And a project like this, I think it's really about kind of flowing to the right people. So it's been awesome to see as this project has gone on, the different folks have stepped up at different times to help us get things done. And that's really cool. But it's been really, you know, great to be able to, you know, flow things to different people because everybody has different things going on in their lives all the time. And so being flexible and just relying on others and not trying to do it all yourself. And then the big one, things take longer than you think. You know, in order for things to evolve, to iterate, to emerge, you just need time and space. And so throughout this process, we have had to get and give a lot of pep talks about, you know, this aspect of the work. But when you do kind of let go of trying to get something done super fast, you can kind of create that space for things to evolve and iterate, which has been really cool to see. Because a lot of where the project is now, it wasn't that way in the beginning, and if it hadn't taken as long as it has, it might not be as great. So. Luke, did you want to add on to any of the lessons learned before I skip through?
Nope.
Okay. So before we're kind of wrapping up the slides, but I did want to acknowledge some big contributions to the project. Marlena Medford and Kirsten Wyatt, they really helped us, especially at the beginning when we were just getting this thing started. They helped us in just enormous ways to figure out what this was going to be, and how to promote it and how to communicate it. So they've been great. Eka and Morgan, they have both helped us enormously from that editorial standpoint. And so it's just been really amazing to have them help in such a big way. So we wanted to give kind of a special shout out to them for that. We have some links. I don't know if you can like click on the screen, but we can share these links later. We have a website. We have our GitHub repository, and then we also have documentation. So again, we've really tried to, everything that we have made as part of this project, we've tried to make it so that it can be reused. And so Luke is going to jump into that. But before I kind of do that, I just want to make sure, like, I don't know if it was super clear in my presentation, but the project was done with no funding or anything. Like, we just kind of tried to make this thing happen. You know, Luke and we both, I think, paid for the domain name different years. But otherwise, we've leveraged totally free tools. And our goal is to get the book self-published and sold like at cost, like whatever the cheapest amount can be. And also provide free online. So the goal here is just about creating something of value, modeling how an open civic organization can create something of value. And personally, the project has like really exceeded my expectations. I'm not really sure what my expectations were to begin with, but they've exceeded them. I've met really cool people along the way. I've learned a ton. And it's been just a joy. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a really joyful side hustle. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Luke, and he's going to kind of demo and dig deeper into some of these things.
All right, let's see if I can take the baton. All right, did I do it?
Yes, you did it.
Great. All right, so thank you, Rebecca. That was awesome. Now I have to follow up, which gives me anxiety. So like Rebecca said, we did everything in GitHub, and I will preface this with, I know a lot of people's eyes glaze over when they hear GitHub. We wanted to work in a space that provided all the things, kind of a public repo, issues, project board, and a place for documentation. We felt like GitHub was the best place for that. Generally, the idea is to just work openly. So if you're using Trello for project management or whatever, the idea would be to just kind of open it up so anybody can have access to it, and see how you're working. And this is our website. As Rebecca said, we have a website. It's proudlyservingbook.com. And for the technical people, you know, we're using Jekyll and Bootstrap, and we're hosting using GitHub Pages. So it's actually that repo that we're using to host the book website, but also to manage the chapters and the project as a whole. And you can see here, this is our GitHub organization, and all of the stuff that we're doing is in here. So without getting into too much detail, we have our repo or our repository, and this is our repository that's within our GitHub organization. And you can basically, in the repo, there's all of the code for the book. and then there's information about the project. And you can see across here, we have issues and the pull activity, which we didn't really use. Discussions we didn't use, and most of the stuff that we didn't use. But like, we have a project set up and we have a wiki for it that is the documentation, as Rebecca mentioned, around making it easier for other people to, if they wanted to do a proudly serving book, which we've actually talked with some other people who are interested in doing something related to their niche, they could use the wiki to repurpose and get started. And as you can see here, we've created a public template. So if you know about GitHub, you can actually copy the template, and all of the issue templates and checklist and things related to your project, the website, you could repurpose that and save at this point millions of hours of time of your life. So we, in the repo, we documented everything. Everything was documented. If we had a conversation, we would just document it. And folks who are like product owners or project managers or work on project teams, this is familiar to you. So we were always documenting and putting it into the backlog. So you can see, and we probably didn't do as good of a job as documenting everything, especially like things that weren't related to the chapter, but we tried to update as much as we could, or document as much as we could using the issues tool. And you can see here, here's the issues that we have. And the other thing that we have is our project. So as Rebecca mentioned, we have a project board, and this is where everything is displayed. So it's publicly available. Anybody can access it. We can drop a link in here and you can see what's happening. But so when we do our check-ins, we would just refer to this, and we would go down and look through all of the issues and go through them, and then that was the check-in. And as Rebecca was saying, each chapter had its own issue, and we continued to, so every issue, there's multiple types of issues, and I can show you. So if you see here, if you created a new issue, we created a number of issue templates. There's the chapter final review, which we're doing a lot of now, contributor onboarding, and there's just a lot of different issue templates. But the one that we used the most was for the chapter. And like Rebecca said, we iterated on this all the time. And basically we added this to, make it easier for us to just go through it. And we didn't want to kind of start from scratch every time we were working through this. And we got very detailed on it because, we were all working day jobs and doing, things that this was just part-time. We didn't want to have to think about everything again and again. So this issue template alone, if you're wanting to repurpose, would be extremely valuable for you. And you can see we have kind of phases, set up. This is the onboarding, review the request, create an issue, do the kickoff, get them all, get everybody, set the Slack channel up, get everybody get any of the contributors on board, so that they're dialed into how we work. And I would say like probably all of the contributors didn't use any of this GitHub. It was mostly for us. We would review kind of this chapter checklist with them, but mostly GitHub was for kind of the maintainers who were working on the project, or those folks that Rebecca mentioned. Kirsten, Marlena, Eka, and Morgan have used this to manage the project. But most people didn't look at this after the first time we onboarded them. And then we would just go through this process, the draft, writing the draft, promoting the draft, getting feedback, who was responsible for what. Rebecca, we need to update this because I see that things have changed. And then finalizing the feedback, publishing it, and then promoting it. So it was very extensive. It probably could be more. But this covered a lot of the bases on how we manage the project, managed each chapter. And like we said, it was an iterative process. We definitely didn't think of all of these from the get-go, but we just kind of continued to iterate, and were diligent about updating the chapter template because we realized like once we did that and started a new chapter, it was extremely valuable in helping us manage the chapter publishing much more efficiently. And then, so that's the project and our issues, the project board, and then an example issue. And then initially we had kind of our operations in a Google Doc. And I think it's probably a good practice to do if you're starting a project. But what we've done is moved the Google Doc, I think we're two to Google Docs, but we moved all that information into the wiki feature within the repo. So everything within the project and how we communicated, the style guide, roles, team agreement, all of this stuff is in the wiki. And so it's available for the idea was if anybody wanted to recreate this project, they would have all there would be public documentation, and could repurpose this. So that's pretty much it, Rebecca. I don't want to bore people with the details of operations, but we just really wanted to work in an open environment, and I think it just was easier to share, issues that we were having, who could comment on those, ping people about, jumping in on something, and also just kind of generally learning how to work in the open and being comfortable with it. That's all I have. Rebecca, is there anything that I missed?
No, I mean, I think what we were hoping to show with the GitHub was exactly that we could kind of model how a project could get done in the open. And where I think at the start of the project, we did spend a lot of time working through these ops, and it was all all of that time was well spent because what we were able to set up through this process was something that we could easily, jump into, like Luke said, we were just doing this kind of part-time, working a couple hours a week, on it as a side project. And because we had thought through the operations at the outset, it was just such an easy thing to jump into and get stuff done, because we didn't have to rethink
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, it allowed us to focus, be more present with each of the chapters, and
Mhm.
really, instead of spending mental capacity on operations, and being inefficient with that, we could really just focus on the editorial component.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that was one of the fun things about the project was to work on such a variety of topics with such a variety of contributors. It was so cool to see the expertise that people brought to the table, and then to work with them on the format and the template, so that the book has this really consistent, approachable feel, but also brings all these folks in to contribute in this way. So it's really cool to see so many different folks bring their expertise in, but then have it all brought together in this consistent feel through the book.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's Q&A that we want to jump to. I know we have about 15 minutes left, so.
Yeah, we do. Thank you. So we do have a few questions, and actually, if we have time, I don't know, Rebecca and Luke, how you feel about maybe going into some of the content. Again, I know that this is not the end of the conversation about proudly serving, but maybe, just going into a little bit of depth into one of the chapters. Doesn't have to be upskilling, but just like one of the chapters that you think could be a useful, like maybe the first chapter, working in the open, or something along the lines of what we discussed today. But we have a couple questions from Sonia. The first one was about the contributor list. So do you feel that anyone is missing from this list, and whose voices would you like to see included in the future?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we first started out, like recruiting contributors was a challenge. You always kind of start with your network. And then it kind of goes from there. So it was a challenge to kind of get started, but just over time, again, if you give something time and space and you keep putting it out there and you get people talking about it, I think we did get a lot of a really great amount of perspectives. I think there's always more. So, I mean, I'm not really sure off the top of my head what specifically, but I'm sure if I thought about it, there'd be more. I think topic-wise, I feel like I think from a topic perspective, we're feeling really good about where we're at right now. I don't think we think any topic is missing. But give us, one more day, we'll add another chapter. We've said the book is done now quite a lot, and then we keep adding chapters. But now it's really done after this last chapter. I don't know.
Then that was the next question. It feels like you can go on forever with contributions in this space, but what kind of criteria are you using to determine when you're ready to move to publishing? I guess like when it's done.
We have felt that it was done at several junctures, but then we reconvene and we're like, it's either brought on by us having a conversation and thinking like, oh, we really need X, and then kind of trying to find a contributor to help with that chapter, or it's been spurred by a new person expressing interest and us saying, yes, like that sounds awesome and a good fit. So there's definitely been a couple junctures where we thought we were done and gonna head into publishing, but now we really do think we're done and are gonna shift into publishing.
Yeah, I would say, we really wanted to make this sort of timeless, and not get too granular. So balancing that, something that we've been really thinking about. But I think that we wanted to cover sort of the bases on, how you can run a civic organization, a government civic organization, and leave people with sort of like an overall ethos of how to work. And I think that we've just kind of let it flow, let the, what are we seeing as being missing? And, one of us would come and say, hey, what about this? We have a chapter on deprecating projects, which is very common in open source. And, we were just thinking about it. I was thinking about it. I'm like, wow, we don't have that. And government doesn't talk about it that much. Same with Shira's, I saw her post, and government doesn't talk about upskilling. And as Shira said, there wasn't a lot, and there's not a lot on deprecating as well. And, really, so it's just sort of like, how do we introduce new concepts to help shift the narrative of how civic organizations can work? And I think that we've really, like Rebecca said, we've just allowed it to sort of simmer and think about it. But it's just been kind of a natural thing, an organic thing. And I like Rebecca said, and of course we'll have like 5 more chapters tomorrow. But it feels like we've done, all of the work that needs to be done on this project.
Yeah, you have a broad swath of different topics that really cover it. Another great question that we have is, how do you nudge the authors to actually get their thoughts on paper? Great authors a long time to write without pressure. And speaking of my personal experience, I know you had to ask me. The word counts were the hardest part. The hardest part by far.
Yeah.
They helped focus, but everything was like, it had to be so short and concise. It was quite amazing, actually.
Across the board, I would say word count was the thing that was, but yeah, I mean, just setting deadlines. So, you know, number one, setting deadlines. Number two, sending reminders. So we have like, even in our Gmail, we have email templates in Gmail, and we have like author nudge or contributor nudge. So we have like a pre-written template for like a nudge. That's how often we needed to use it. So yeah, just pestering people politely, knowing that they're doing this for free. So yeah, and recognizing when folks are not gonna get across the finish line, and having that conversation as well. So and I think one of the biggest things that helped was that we had a chapter template. So once so many of our contributors commented on the fact that that template, they didn't start from a blank page of paper. They started from a template, and the template had guidance. And then once we had a couple chapters under our belt, they had models to kind of look to. So that chapter template made the writing process a heck of a lot easier than a blank piece of paper. And then just checking in and being as available as they needed us. So some people needed another meeting to brainstorm and talk through. Some chapters, you know, sailed through because the chapter template, the topic just worked and the author just knew what they needed to say. And then others, it was more iterative and there were a lot more conversations, a lot of async work. So everything was done in Google Docs, and we would use the comment feature with the contributor. And having that maintainer review before the public review, where, you know, we could kind of talk through some of the areas where we thought needed some more work and things like that. But yeah, just polite pinging, and then also just knowing when something wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that and giving them an out, right? That, like, saying, I think there was at least one where we were, you know, like, look, are you able to do this? And you know, they weren't able to do it, and because of stuff going on. And I think that, yeah, to Rebecca's point, I mean, the great authors, right? Like, I remember Joy Bonaguro, we had, you know, coffee, and we were talking about, I said, would you like to do a chapter? And she was the chief data officer for California and then San Francisco. So she wrote a chapter on data governance. And she said that it would take her a while because she's got things to do. You know, she's working on some stuff. And then within a few days, she just knocked it out, and it was like perfect. And I think that it really, everybody's different, you know, and whether they know how to write or they're just really have been thinking about what the topic that they're writing about. And it's pretty straightforward. And it just kind of was executed seamlessly. Like, I would say, like, Shira did an amazing job of not like telling us that we were idiots, and she was done with her project, because it was really like there was a lot of work. I mean, it took, you know, there was a lot of back and forth, and we were trying to figure out like this new concept and how to present it. And she did a really great job of, you know, and the final product was really amazing. So I think that, you know, it just varied from person to person and topic to topic. But I mean, I think it's just like, you're never going to force something. And, you know, understanding that is, you'll be much more successful, but also giving people the out, saying, look, it's okay if you know, can't do this or don't want to do it or are frustrated. And, you know, I think it happened once. But, you know, it's just, really being honest. And I think the checklist up front and the timeline helped, but also just sort of realizing that people have lives and they're not getting paid to do this, and just working with them, meeting them where they are.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke. Yeah, we have two more questions. The first is, how does this differentiate from or build on existing playbooks and guidance created by folks at USDS and 18F, for example?
Well, I would say a lot of the chapters point to those resources. And so they're very complementary. But I think what's different is these chapters are written by individuals who have a certain set of experience, and bring a certain, perspective to the topic. And so while these guides get referenced in our in Proudly Serving quite frequently through the chapters. Each chapter has like a learn more section, so that's often where these are referenced. I think this is more of an individual's take on the topic. We also have a chapter template that everything kind of fits into, and so I think that this book really, I think all of these playbooks kind of complement each other. I'm not sure if, I think that some of the chapters that we cover might expand, and on some of these resources. And then I would also say one of the things that differentiates ours is one of our key audiences is local government. And while I think anyone in government can find this to be a resource, my experience is local government. And so that was always my lens, is I read every chapter thinking, can a city manager of a town of 25,000 find this approachable and actionable and useful, right? So I was always looking at a lot of these chapters, and trying to figure out how we can make them really approachable to small local governments, which is most of America. And that is, I think, one of the challenges with some of these really amazing resources that the federal government puts out, but it sometimes can be hard for smaller local governments to contextualize them and make sense of them. And so I think this almost offers a bridge between these really amazing resources, but contextualizing them in a way that smaller local governments can find them approachable and actionable.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like the USDS, the playbook, that's really an incredible web page. It's literally one page, I think, still. And the 18F work, the work that 18F's done around documentation. But they're very like digital service, technical. I think 18F has some like higher level operational cultural stuff. But the idea was to create something to help government or civic organizations learn how to be in this day and age, and that applies to, like Rebecca was saying, right? Like the city manager could read this and get like, okay, I'm digital, I understand kind of how to be in this new kind of digital world. And there are a lot of people and a lot of city managers across the country that are just, they don't have any understanding of culturally how to be. So balancing kind of the culture and the technical for a group of people that aren't like in the weeds on, digital service, project, product owner, implementation, but giving them kind of an opportunity to kind of wade into the water without feeling like they've got to, cold plunge into the river. And that's really what we wanted to do, is kind of synthesize and package it all into one thing for all people. So all of those people could get aligned on one single source of truth and be like, yeah, upskill always, right? Like there's these things that, we wanted to kind of communicate that everybody in an organization could align on. And I think USDS is great, and 18F, the stuff that they do is really great, but you would be hard pressed to like get your head around that if you weren't technical or in the weeds on kind of digital service stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a really interesting conversation. And again, just to remind folks that this is just the beginning. So if you'd like to sign up for our book club discussion where we can dive more deeply into the specifics of various chapters, that will be on January 15th at 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And the link is in the chat if you'd like to sign up for that. And maybe just like one last question to think about before we go, because I don't know if we're going to have a chance to really talk about this because we only have 2 minutes left. But maybe think on like what sort of other civic projects do you imagine or foresee, following this format, and like what kind of projects could this inspire? And there could be a whole range of them. Like the way you've done this has been so shareable and so transparent that I think, it could be done even if government doesn't necessarily, some governments I know can't use GitHub. They're not able to use GitHub. They're not able to use Google Docs, right? They have to use specific software that is specific to government and confidential and follows different regulations and rules, but it could still inspire various projects. And so maybe that's something to leave you with. What kind of projects could you imagine could take on this format, and what would you like to see out in the world? So with that, thank you so much, Luke and Rebecca. Really excited to continue this conversation with you. Thanks to everyone for coming and contributing your questions. And we will see you at a future demo day. So take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.